Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today will be Seabass of WNWS of Jackson, Tennessee. We thank our sponsor, Wellspire, Nashville's Learning and Development Center. Wellspire offers personal and professional development opportunities in a beautiful facility in the Gulch neighborhood. Stop by for an event with world-renowned speakers or host an off-site event that will wow your team or your clients. Thank you also to our co-sponsor, the Well Coffee House, which turns coffee into water and has a mission to bring clean water to the world. Today's news presented by Sutherland & Belk, a Nashville-based injury law firm. Sutherland & Belk is committed to fighting for those who have been injured in car, motorcycle, and truck accidents. Check them out at sbinjurylaw.com. The football schedule has been released for 2020. Non-conference opponents are Mercer, Colorado State, Kansas State, and Louisiana Tech. Kansas State is the only road opponent of the four. Conference games: home against Ole Miss, South Carolina, Florida, and Tennessee. Road contests at Missouri, Georgia, Kentucky, and Texas A&M. The guest line, presented by Boll & Branch, started by Vanderbilt graduates Scott and Missy Tannen. I've slept on Boll & Branch sheets for about 6 years now. They're phenomenal. Had no idea what I was missing until I got them. They are also fair trade certified. That means they are made under safe conditions by men and women who are treated and paid fairly. Try them for a month. If you want to return them, you can for a month, but you're not going to want to once you sleep on them. Once you get the sheets, grab the mattress. That was voted best mattress of 2018. Go to bollandbranch.com. That's spelled B-O-L-L. Enter the promo code Vandy and get $50 off your first set of sheets. Seabass joins us from WNWS in Jackson, Tennessee. Thank you for joining us, my friend. Football season is almost here.
Boy, you got that right. And we are, what are we looking at? 24 days? Is that what we're looking at? 24 days away?
Yeah, it'd be 3 weeks from Saturday.
That's 500, let's see, 587 hours from now?
I guess.
Am I ready? Oh, yeah. Though, you know, a question comes to mind, Fat Man, and that's this. With the opener being Georgia, and hey, you never know. You never know. I don't expect it, but you never know. But does it change for you, your level of excitement about the opener, you know, just the anticipation of it all in a brand new season because it's such an uphill battle? Does it change the way you feel about it?
Not really. I mean, I would rather see Georgia than Alabama A&M. I think from an interest standpoint, yeah, it kind of does. Whether they win or not is sort of immaterial to me. I'm just interested in the storylines, and I would rather see it be a game where it's interesting than all the preseason build up to a game that you know they're going to just slaughter somebody. So from that standpoint, I guess I'm more interested.
Okay, so how about this? Let's look at this thing in a couple of different layers, couple different levels. Okay, what score and outcome says, good grief, this sucks, bring on, well, I would say basketball season, bring on baseball season again. What kind of outcome would you have to see on 31st for that to be the case?
Oh, I think it'd have to be really lopsided, like 40-something points or more, because Georgia could legitimately beat them down, and they could still have a really good year. And I'll give you, exactly. I will cite an example. I mean, this just pops off the top of my head. I remember watching Missouri, what was it, 2 years ago, where they played Missouri State, I think it was, in the opener. Missouri State put up almost 50 points on them. And, of course, Vanderbilt Vanderbilt started hot that year. And I remember watching that game and thinking, well, this is a game Vanderbilt ought to win and maybe win handily based on what I saw today. And, of course, what happens, Missouri comes into Nashville and just cleans their clock. They're up, 31-0 at half or something like that, and it was worse than the score. So I say all that to say I just don't think you know. I don't know that that's a question that I can answer without seeing the game.
Well, that sucks because now I can't ask the rest of the question.
Well, you can try.
Yeah,
if they go out and they get beat 48-3, then I have a lot of questions because I would think that the offense is good enough to score. If the defense is bad, it would not surprise me. So, I mean, I guess there are conditions, but I'm just saying it would take an extreme outcome for me to feel that way because I think that's a game where they could be a pretty good team by Vanderbilt standards and still get beat down.
They walk out that stadium, they lose 28-10 at the end of the day, which would I don't know, that almost be a pretty darn good defensive game, I would think, at 28. They lose that game 28-10. They're competitive, but it's just clear they're playing a far superior football team. What's your attitude leaving there?
I would probably feel encouraged because I feel like they're going to score points. My take would probably be that Georgia's an elite defense. They had a tough day, but if they held Georgia to 28, I'm thinking the defense is better than I thought it would be.
That's what I love about this game. I mean, everything is so fine because you're talking about finding encouragement by losing at home by 3 touchdowns to a conference team. But I totally get it, and I'm kind of the same way. All right, what has to happen? Let's just say Vanderbilt loses the type of game that they lost last year in South Bend, a game that they had an opportunity to win, but fall just a gnat's eyelash short of. What's your statement then?
I don't know. They've lost that kind of game narrowly so many times, and it never translated. But I would, at the same time, I think this is a better team. I think I would have to feel encouraged. As I watch them, I think this is a really talented team. I mean, really talented. And I've said this before, if they're just okay on defense, this could be a really, really good season. Now, I don't know that they're going to be okay on defense. They may or may not, but you do have a defensive coordinator in his second year. You do have a team that's got some depth. You do have a lot of guys that are freshmen becoming sophomores and sophomores becoming juniors and that type of thing. And I've laid this out on the podcast before. I think there's a scenario where they get really better by season's end and have us thinking for 2020, hey, this is a decent, maybe really good defense. So I think that's a possibility.
Okay, so in the limited exposures that you've had, I mean, outside of the big three, we already know about those. What when you talk about talent, what is it that you've seen that makes you specifically that says, hey, you can do something here other than the big three?
Oh, based on what I've seen in fall, nothing. We have seen maybe a dozen live snaps.
So you're basing it on the spring?
I'm basing it on two things. You've got a coach who is a defensive-oriented head coach who has fielded some decent defenses at Vanderbilt before, and I'm just basing it on the fact of development curves of players. A lot of times, even teams that are bad for a couple of years, as they get experienced, can turn into pretty solid, if not good, units. That's just how the development curve works, and I look at where their defense is in terms of class standing and how they recruited, especially 2 years ago. And I just think it profiles as the team that figures to take a big jump next year defensively. It's just because of how things work. Now, I would love to be able to sit here and tell you, oh, I saw Gabe Judy do this, or Trey Douglas do that, or Deshaun Jerkins do that, or Rutger Reitmeyer do that. I can't tell you any of that based on what I've seen in the fall. So I don't know where the leaps come from. I'm just saying it's kind of like a math thing. If you got a bunch of guys and they're at a certain stage of development, usually some of those guys take a jump. I just don't know who they'll be yet.
Right, and I'm guessing if I read this right, and I sort of haven't seen anything else other than the little snippets that Vanderbilt football's Twitter site puts up. There's not really any video of any practice either, is there?
No, in fact, another writer was shooting video of a defensive back backpedaling and got shouted at by a coach on the field. Like, don't do that. You got to erase that right away. I'm like, man, he was just he was recording a guy backpedaling.
Oh, Lord. Man, I hope nobody from Georgia is listening to the podcast. We might backpedal, y'all. And that's surely that's just jesting, but that's. I mean, I halfway get it. I get it. I do. I just, thirsting for because there are so many questions in this camp, no question. But let's see if we can piece a few things together here, if possible. And again, we all understand that the limited exposure. Of the true freshmen from a physical standpoint, and anything to point out, anybody catch your eye just from a physical standpoint?
I have not had a lot of time to look over what I do when I get out there. We get to see so little stuff. I barely have time to just look at where everybody's lined up. And I made a cheat sheet to help me in that, kind of see, okay, where are they grouping guys, first team, second team? Is this defensive back playing safety? Is he playing corner? So I've got this big checklist that kind of helps me with that. Other than that, we were out there so little, I don't have time to make any meaningful observations. The best I've got is I looked at Jaden Harrison. That kid is really thick, like in a good way. Like that kid is really well put together. They list him, 5'10", 195. He's every bit of that. Maybe 5 ounces of, not 5 ounces, maybe 5% body fat. Just a really chiseled athlete. Remember how Anquan Bolden used to look? Kind of a knockoff version of that. Not quite as bulky. That's all I got. I mean, I'm not kidding. We were out there so little. Eddie Turner's a big guy. I don't know if that's good, if that's bad. He's not a freshman, but he's a newcomer. Covering camp, this is a good analogy. You've seen Shawshank Redemption, right?
A time or two.
Trying to do this with the Axis this year is about like trying to break out of his prison cell with a rock hammer.
I wonder if the Pacific is as blue as it is in my dreams.
I would love to know. I feel like I'm crawling through the sewer right now. It's more like it, though.
Oh, man. Chris Lee had to crawl through a mile of the stuff that most people can't even imagine.
I would almost do that. No, I wouldn't, but
I'll say this. I'm willing to let you. I'm willing to let you do just that, my friend, for the coverage. Okay, a couple things here. Here's a question that I have, because look, this quarterback race is clearly a two-man race. Just on what you've seen, Alan Walters came out pretty highly regarded. A lot of big offers. A lot of people thought a lot of him. What's the situation? Is just not ready yet? I mean, do you think significantly behind when it comes to Wallace and Neal? What's the situation with him? Because we really don't talk about him.
I think those other kids that are competing with him are juniors and seniors, and just with that comes a level of maturity and understanding. He's a second year on campus guy. He's a redshirt freshman. He's never played. I think he's got some ability. But those two kids that they've got, I think, are pretty special kids in terms of their approach to the game and just their knowledge of the offense. I think a lot of it's just a difference in maturity.
Is there anybody that you can compare? Because, look, all we saw was a spring game and just a little, just a little snippet here and there. We've never really got a chance to truly see Deuce Wallace run the offense at Vanderbilt. Is there another quarterback at Vanderbilt, or maybe even another opponent or from somewhere else in the conference, that you can liken Deuce's game to?
Whit Taylor is the best one that comes to mind, maybe. And that's a name a lot of people would know. He played in the early 80s, played on that Hall of Fame Bowl team. A little guy. Deuce is bigger, but can run a little bit, got a pretty accurate arm. Not going to beat you with lasers 35 yards across the hash marks or 60 yards down the field, maybe, at least not that I have seen. And again, we didn't get to see a lot in spring and fall, but just pretty accurate with the ball, pretty heady, very mature kid, very smart kid, trusted as a leader, trusted by the coaches based on what I know. I just think he's a kid that coaching staff really likes. And what I have seen, I think he's a solid player.
What's Deuce's height? About 6'2", 6'3"?
I think they list him 6'1".
6'1". Okay. I'm real interested in Deuce, man. I'm real interested. I think we're gonna be okay no matter who wins the job. But I'm real interested to get an opportunity to see Deuce Wallace. And from a mobility standpoint, we want mobile. Who would you say is more mobile? Because Riley got that long time, but who would you say was the more mobile quarterback?
I don't know. I've not seen enough reps of Riley to know.
Right. Riley can move around. Yeah, especially he's got a long stride. He's not Teddy Bridgewater or anything like that, but both can move around. I just didn't know if you felt like one had the advantage there one way or the other.
No, I mean, I know Riley ran for 1,500 yards at Ball State, which is pretty good for anybody, much less a 6'7" guy. May not have been 1,500, but it was 1,300, something like that. It was a lot.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, I got an opportunity. I've read your practice reports and certainly enjoy that. Just scarfing that up all we can get. I was interested to see, and probably not overly surprised to see that a theme had started to occur. At least starting offensive line was, and if that's where we start with that five, I don't really see that as being much of a surprise. It's pretty much what you figured at this point, right, Chris? With Miller at center, Young and Clemens at the guards, and then of course Steen and good grief, the one person I shouldn't forget.
Miller, Grant Miller.
No, I said Miller already. The left tackle.
Oh, Devin Cochran. Excuse me.
Yeah, Devin Cochran. Yeah, that's the one name I shouldn't forget. But those five to me, I mean, that's not really a surprise. Agreed.
No, I mean, the thing I'm probably surprised about is that I thought there'd be a little bit more experimentation. I thought that they would maybe move Clemens inside and outside, and maybe, I don't know, see Stewart at right tackle or something like that. And I thought there'd be more mixing and matching and experimenting because with the first week of camp. But no, they kind of have their five, and it's the same five and in the same spot every time, which I think is actually good, but it's not what I expected.
I saw what Coach had to say about Jonathan Stewart, which was encouraging. He seems to be coming along. Like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, boy, that would be a really big feather in the cap. Could you imagine having to go around Jonathan Stewart and Devin Cochran? Has a long way to go. You may end up stepping out of bounds trying to get around those two guys. But, for right now, as you mentioned, Cole inside. And the one that, I guess I haven't seen enough reps-wise and paid attention to is Tyler Steen. I don't know what we have with Tyler. Clearly versatile, no question about it. Comes from a good program, but we've seen him flip-flopping back and forth sides of the ball. I don't really know enough to know what we've got at right tackle there.
All I can tell you is they felt good enough about him to run him second-team tackle this time last year, and they feel good enough about him now that it looks like he's the starter at right tackle. But I just haven't seen him. So do you want to go ahead and go to the mailbag?
Yeah, that's fine.
Our mailbag is sponsored by Vanderbilt fan and independent insurance agent Josh Minton of Brentwood. Are you in the market for auto, motorcycle, home, renters, or landlord insurance? What about life or commercial insurance? Call Josh, 615-933-1979. Email him at josh@hqinsurance.com. Follow him on Facebook at facebook.com/JD Minton HQ. He's my insurance agent. Hope you'll make him yours. VU Matt 23 says, can you rank the position groups on both sides of the ball in terms of talent, then rank the position groups in terms of being able to withstand injuries?
Okay, you want to start on offense, Chris?
Yeah.
Clearly the weakness of this team is receiver. It's something you might hear in years past. That is certainly not the case now. I would have to say, I think it's the most talented group maybe on this team. So I'm going to say in order, we've got arguably a top two or three best running back in the country. And I like some of the depth behind him or some of the potential behind him as well. So I'm going to go wide receiver, running back, even though we don't have an idea of just exactly who our starter is going to be. you got to like the potential, and too deep there at quarterback. And then, of course, offensive line, the biggest question. We've said that all along. I'm going to go with receiver, running back, quarterback, offensive line. What do you say?
Yeah, that's how I would go. In terms of injury avoidance, I think they're deep at wide receiver, deep enough to where they can withstand something, unless it's just off the charts improbable, like getting 2 or 3 guys hurt. I still think even with the major injury there, they'll be fine, if not good. And especially if you include tight end there. I think they've got a couple of really good ones right now in Pinckney and Bresnahan. I would say, quarterback, I think they can withstand injury to one guy because I think both those guys are capable. Offensive line, I'm worried about their ability to withstand injury because it seems like they got 5 and there's a pretty big drop-off to the second team from what I have heard. And running back, I'm a little more concerned about now because I'm not seeing Marlowe out there. He's wearing a red jersey every practice and not doing anything, and that was the case in the spring. So I'm a little more concerned about their depth at running back. I think Wakefield is just okay. I think Marlowe's a difference maker. Now, I don't know if Marlowe would get second-team snaps anyway because they always like those veteran guys like they like Blossomgame last year. And I think Wakefield is one of those guys they've liked for a while, and he's waited his turn and think they want to give him his chance. Not that I blame them for that, but I just see Wakefield as being an okay back. I see Marlowe as being potentially a really good one. But I'm concerned now because this is 2 straight camps, including spring, where he was barely on the field, if on the field at all. In fact, I don't remember if I saw him take a live rep in the spring. If I did, I think it was early.
I'll tell you a name, and that's a true freshman. So, I mean, it is what it is. But I'm really intrigued by this guy. And I'm wondering what the Commodores have in this young man. And I have no idea if he's going to get playing time this year or not. But I'm intrigued by the skill set of J.R. Tranreno.
Yeah, I mean, from what I saw on film in high school, he looks good. I talked to Mason about him off the record back in, it wasn't off the record, but it was off mic back in spring. And he dropped I think the Christian McCaffrey comp is the type of player he thinks he is. So, take that for what it's worth, but that's kind of the style that he envisions for him.
Yeah, that would be okay with me, Chris. That would certainly be okay with me. So I'll be interested to see what they have with some of the younger guys. But I agree with you about the Marlowe thing, man. I remember you were chewing all over that guy and the potential last year. And, of course, the reps didn't end up being there. He could be a very vital part of this offense and offer them a little something else. So I would hate to think that injuries could keep that from happening.
Yeah, I think as good as they are on its skill possessions on offense, or skill positions, I think he's one of their 5 most talented players there. Between if you group tight ends, receivers, and running backs together, I think just raw talent, he's in the top 5.
Yeah, we got to find a way to get that dude on the field. Now, do we have any idea what the injury is?
I don't recall seeing a brace. I didn't see a cast. I'll have to look. Because he's not on the field, I'm not paying as much attention, but I don't recall seeing anything. And, sometimes if a guy's coming off an injury, you will see them do this. You'll see a guy in a red shirt not practicing much, and then the next day he'll be out there going like Dimitri Moore did that the other day. Moore's been hurt a lot throughout his career, and so I saw him in a red jersey a couple days ago. Well, yesterday he's out there running in full pads. He did have a red jersey on, but sometimes they will do that to where if a guy's had injury issues, they just kind of ease him in, and maybe one day he's practicing, one day he's not. That could be the case. It could just be that I'm presuming he had an injury or an ailment in the spring, and they're trying to let him recover, or it could be serious that he's not playing. I don't know.
But certainly hope not. Dimitri Moore is going to be highly counted on in this linebacking core in this defensive unit, period. So hopefully he'll be just fine. All right, next question.
We didn't do defense.
Wait, we did. Yeah, we didn't do defense, didn't we? Yeah, we didn't do defense. Okay. Boy, man, is there a unit that sticks out as the focal point of this unit, Chris. I mean, I think there's potential all over the place, but I think there's real questions that on August the 7th don't have answers. I mean, I love some of the early return reports about, Cam Watkins and his play, but I mean, those are real questions we don't have answered yet. Linebackers a real issue. And of course, defensively, I guess the one thing that I would say, at least on the defensive line, I got a known commodity there in Dio. And then, of course, two guys in Cam Tidd and Drew Birchmeyer who've been there and done that. So, I mean, while I don't really perceive there to be a unit which would be considered the strength of this team, I do like some of the potential the D-line has. If these transfers perform well, then maybe the secondary is not quite the question that some think it is. So this is purely reluctantly on my part because, like I said, I don't think there's a strong unit in it, at least not right now. I guess I'll go D-line, DB, linebacker.
I would probably go in reverse. But we are totally spitballing here. I don't have anything to base an opinion on other than what I already thought of the guys coming into fall. I've always kind of been bullish on their inside linebackers. I just think that Dimitri Moore is going to get better. I liked him in high school. He was a great player in high school. He was out there so much last year. That's the kind of kid that gets a lot better in year 2 and 3 and 4. I've always liked Alston Orji. I think that physically he's the most impressive looking of that bunch. Great film in high school. I always loved Colin Anderson's film. Have loved Colin in practice. Colin's out there now. So I think that they've got, again, I don't know which of those guys is going to stick. That the other guys behind them have been pretty competitive. I just think they got enough bodies. And for whatever reason, Vanderbilt's always been pretty good at linebacker. I just have a feeling that they're going to end up being serviceable, if not good, there by the end of the year. Their outside linebackers are a total wild card to me, but you got Hebert who can get after the passer. I've heard he's had a good camp. I want to see what Paulino Bell can do, which I have no idea. I don't think I've seen him or not noticed him taking a rep yet. I might not have seen him. Again, we've seen a half dozen reps. I'm intrigued by him and by McAllister. I've told you about before, but I'm just spitballing. I nothing based on what I have seen in the fall, because I haven't seen anything, has been able to influence my opinion. So I'm just going back to what I thought. The defensive line to me is a total wild card. They think they're better. They're insistent that they're better. I've not seen it. Again, it's not that they can't be. It's just limited snaps. And the DBs, I'm just not sure who's going to play. I mean, I don't know who their starting corners are going to be. I think their safeties are probably going to be Daly and Coppett, but their corners. I mean, I think Carrier Williams is one of them, but I don't know what he is. And the other corner could be Hamilton. It could be Cam Watkins. It could be Alan George. I just don't know. I mean, I don't have any better answer to that question than I had in March.
Yeah, look, it's like I said, every unit on here's got plenty of question marks.
Yeah, there's a ton of questions.
You mentioned Colin Anderson moving around. Does he look like he's just 100% ready to go? That would be good. That would be a big boost, I think.
I guess. I mean, he's in a red jersey. I think we have seen a half dozen snaps in pads, and I didn't lock in on him when he was playing. I just know the fact that he's out there and moving around is probably a pretty good sign.
Outstanding. We certainly need it. All right, next question.
Next question. Mr. Vandy says, you think that because the defensive line is bigger this year, it can slow down other teams' running games?
Theoretically, that sounds right. We've been getting bullied at the point of attack, and it's harder to move bigger dudes, but we better be. We better be, because I think it begins right there. If that's a sore spot, then the rest of the defense is going to suffer. But if it is improved, and some of that size that we're talking about lends itself to slowing down the run, I think we're completely stopping. Because for one, I mean, think about it. There are still some pretty freaking good running backs in the SEC East alone. Tennessee's got a couple of really good running backs. You know, Roundtree, Missouri, DeAndre Swift in Georgia. I mean, look, there are some good running backs inside the eastern part of the SEC. And if we're no different than last year against the run, if that size that doesn't help at all, then I think it'll be a lot more of the same.
Next question comes from FHU Door. The experts and analysts talk about Riley Neal's NFL ability or potential. If Deuce Wallace wins the job, does that mean he's in the same boat talent-wise? Did he outperform? Could it be loyalty to the staff, to its recruit? Personally, I want the best man out there, as most would.
I mean, I know the loyalty thing's legit. I know it's real, but at the same time, I mean, we're talking about the quarterback position, and I can't imagine that Coach Skidowski and Coach Mason would have anyone but the very best option for us out there. So, I mean, look, if Riley Neal's the better option, then Riley Neal's going to be a quarterback. I don't care if he's signed with them out of high school or not. There's too much riding on it. We've got the type of skill position players that we have. I mean, because look, let me tell you something. It's not just about winning these games this year, but I think that it's also sending a message to future potential really good skill position type players that come to Vanderbilt, you know, that have the option of rolling out. This year is very important because I think it needs to send the message same way, you know, well, not the exact same way, but in the same light that, like with Vanderbilt's baseball team and some of the cats who could have went to Major League Baseball but didn't, stayed here, and they saw the fruits of that. If that hadn't happened, if we didn't see the fruits of it, then I think that would happen less and less. And the same thing here for Vanderbilt. Look, if guys like Key and guys like Kalijah and guys like Peeney, a potential first-round pick, are going to come back here and do it one more time, then it's going to need to pay off. And that's going to be something that Coach Mason can say, look, you know, Cam Johnson in 2 years from now, and that's just an example. I mean, whoever. Look what it did for Kalijah. Look what it did for Jared. Look what it did for Key. No, I think they're going to put their best foot forward in every conceivable way because, to me, there's a whole lot more on the line than 2019.
Let me give you a hypothetical.
All right.
Let's say you were the coaching staff, and it's your decision who to start at quarterback. And let's say those guys are just dead even. And by the way, from what I understand, the reps have been just about dead even so far. So let's say that 3 weeks from now, neither guy has separated himself. But let's just say, and again, this is hypothetical. Let's just say that you think that the upside is higher with Riley Neal just because of the arm strength, and he does have a stronger arm. There's no doubt in my mind. Now, Deuce may make up with it with his knowledge of the offense, or again, maybe scrambling ability or other things. I don't know. This is all hypothetical. I do know that he's got the stronger arm. Let's say that you think that hypothetically the upside is higher there with him. On the other hand, you know that if Deuce Wallace doesn't play this year, you're going into next year losing your two best offensive players and breaking in a new quarterback. And all things being equal, your quarterback next year is better if he's played this year. So if you're the coach and that's how you size it up, what's your call?
Well, at least you didn't ask me a hard question. I mean, is there a clear, easy answer? I don't think so. However, this is just me. I'm the coach, right? I'm the coach now, and I'm a big picture dude. I really am. But am I really doing my team a favor if I don't play the guy that I think gives me the very best? I got a class full of seniors who have been there for a while. And I'll say to them, well, you know, I appreciate this. This guy doesn't give you the best chance to win, but I got to think about next year. You know, I have to put the best team that I possibly can on the field every time I take the field. I don't want to lose Deuce if that were the case. I would like to think he'd stay. I'd like to think he'd realize that the job should definitely be his and push him to work hard as he can for it. He's come this far. But I'm going to put whoever is best for this team the very next time I play a game. Because if not, I mean, what does every freaking coach on the planet tell you when you ask them the question about who the most important team on their schedule is, Chris?
It's the next one.
The very next one. I don't give a flip if it's, whether it's Wofford or Washington. They'll all tell you the very same thing. Well, if you make a decision like that based the other way, then you don't mean it. It's got to be about that next game and putting the best player on the field. I'll take my chances with the other stuff after that. What about you? Now you're the coach. You make the same decision.
I don't know. I really don't. That's why I asked the question, because I think it's almost impossible to answer. There's one side that says, if you think one guy's got a higher upside, and this is what I base my opinion on, okay? Again, we did not get to see, well, Deuce wasn't there in the spring anyway, and I've not seen him really throw the ball this fall. When I've seen him in the past, I thought his accuracy was pretty good and his mobility was nice. I know that coaching staff loves him. He's a really smart kid. He's a very mature kid. Again, I don't think the suspension was in any way, shape, or form a reflection of who he is. He is well-liked and well thought of by everybody. And frankly, I thought that was very bad for him to be put in that spot. If what I have heard, which I'm not going to get into, is true. Anyway, that aside, I feel like I have a better idea of what Riley Neal can do because I have seen full game films of him against other competition. And I thought, as I watched, I think he's got some talent. I think that his receiving core is markedly better. I think in the spring when I saw him throw the ball, it seemed to me that he was putting more zip on the ball, and I think it's because he could. I'm not sure that the kids that he had could catch some of the balls that he was throwing, especially some of the long balls. I just don't think they had speed to separate. So here's my take. I think if Deuce Wallace wins the job, and I'm not presuming I don't get to see any more practice, people kind of have this presumption, I think, that Deuce maybe isn't that good. That just has not squared with what I've seen. Now, it's been limited. But I think if Deuce Wallace wins the job, what that probably tells me is, knowing what I do know about Riley Neal from having watched game film at his last stop, that tells me Deuce is a pretty good player too.
Exactly.
And that's a lot of hypotheticals, but that's how I think through it.
Well, right now, I mean, this is what these both practices leave us with is hypotheticals. We don't have anything else. There's nothing else we can do. Pure speculation on most of this stuff. We have the slightest of information. We take what we can get with that. But I'll tell you this much now, and now that will have no effect on this particular season. I'm gonna tell you one thing. I can't wait to see the ink dry on that letter of intent for Ken Seals, buddy. I'm telling you, I don't know that I've ever been this hyped up about a quarterback that Vanderbilt has in the fold. Now, again, they don't have him yet, but I think it would take a lot negatively happening for them to lose Ken Seals. But Chris, good grief, I think they're going to get the steal of the century in the kid from Weatherford.
I was thinking today too, they lose some players, some very, very marquee players on offense for 2020. But I think they've got a shot to be respectable just because I think they've done a pretty decent job. I mean, it seems. It's way premature to be making statements about next year when this year hasn't started. And I remember if you asked me late in last season, I would have said 2019 is going to stink because I thought they were going to lose Vaughn and Pinckney and Lipscomb. And then some other guys took a step up, and now our outlook is totally different. So making a perception, even further ahead is kind of a fool's errand. But I think just based on the perceived level of talent that I think they're bringing in, I don't think the drop-off might be quite as much as you'd think. We'll see how that plays out. And Seals, I think, would be part of it. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to start next year, but I'm just saying I think I'm a little more bullish on the future because I perceive that they're doing a pretty decent job of identifying and developing talent just based on what we know about the older guys that we've seen play.
And doing a pretty good job of keeping his staff together for the most part. Having that continuity is pretty good, and when you do have to make a change, you upgrade. And I think they've done that. I don't know that. He hadn't called the game yet, but I think that's possibly the case. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, you can't speculate too far in advance. But I do happen to agree. I think the type of player that he's bringing in right now has potential to really do something in the future. I'm excited. I really am. And I don't think just because I want it to be the case. I mean, we certainly do. But I mean, I base my excitement on what I perceive to be some pretty nice players for this team. I'll be honest with you. I don't. And maybe it's because it's the off season. Look, we've gotten frustrated with this coaching staff many times. There's no doubt about it. I feel like, and again, look, I know for those that are going to say, look, the dude still doesn't have a winning record. I cannot and would not try to dispute that. All I'm saying is, I don't know if there's this imaginary corner or whatever the case is. I just feel like this program under Derek Mason is kind of starting to take that next step in the evolution of this program. And maybe I'm completely wrong about that. It's just kind of where I see this program heading.
It's too early to say for sure. I think we need to see how this season plays out, definitely. But I will say this. One thing that I think is a really good sign is attrition becomes, I think, a bigger deal in college football with the grad transfers. They don't lose kids. I mean, the kids they lose are the ones that can't play. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you see other teams lose a graduate transfer who goes to a different place. They're not losing kids who go to other places for bigger and better, which is, not always been the case at Vanderbilt. So I think that's a positive too. I mean, I'm telling you, the people that I talk to, the parents and sometimes the people that have played for him, and I'm not saying everybody is going to say this. Nobody likes everybody, but the consensus on Derek from basically everybody I talk to, people that work in that building, everybody loves the guy. And I think that means something. And I think that means something in terms of continuity and development.
Now, and doesn't he seem more comfortable to you in his job?
Yeah, I think he got that extension and the vote of confidence, and he got the do-nothing chancellor and the care-nothing chancellor out of that seat. He's got an AD who can get him some stuff. He just got an extension. I think he's getting help in support areas we can't see. I mean, it's no wonder when I watch the guy, he's more relaxed than he's ever been. I think that the conditions around his job have improved to a level that it's nowhere near what he saw his first 4 years here.
It's amazing what a little stability will do for you. It sounds like he's starting to get that. That's outstanding. All right, what you got for me, Chris? Well.
Okay, this also from FHU Door. What do you think Malcolm Turner saw in the football program or in Coach Mason that caused him to extend him almost as soon as he started as AD?
Well, I think for me, I think, let's see, first 3 straight wins over Tennessee, and including a couple of really impressive ones. I think when he put it up against what Vanderbilt coaches have done in the past, he realizes that this isn't quite that bad. He looked at a guy who's had a couple of other Power 5 schools come calling, but it looks to me that it's clear, and that was back home, by the way, both times, that it's clear this is where he wants to be. And then I think Malcolm's looked at the totality of it all and said, considering the fact that we as an institution have scarcely helped this man, I wonder what would happen if I can ease his burden a little bit, take a little pressure off, and help him and help him understand that from a facility standpoint and just things that he needs to compete, but he hasn't had. If I can help him get these things, I may just have myself a heck of a football coach. That he's had his hands tied a little bit, and maybe if I untie him, he's got a chance to take this football team to another level.
I think what you just articulated is pretty representative of the view. I don't know if it's Malcolm Turner's, but based on some insiders in the conversation around that, I think that's I would expect that's the way that he thought about that too, because I'm sure he sought out people for information, and the people that know what's going on, that's the narrative that I heard. So I think you're pretty close to the mark there.
Hey, I get one right every now and then.
That's right. We all got to stumble into one every now and then, right?
You got that right, my friend. What else you got?
Let's see. You have touched, this from South Florida VU, about the schedule in past podcasts, especially Georgia and LSU this year. But if you create the ideal schedule for Vanderbilt football, what would it look like? When to play the toughest opponents, the cupcakes, the others, and the bye weeks. I've been thinking through this. Here's a way that maybe we could answer the question more tangibly. What if, because, okay, you don't really get a choice in terms of who you play in conference, right?
Agreed.
Well, you don't at all. All you can control is your out-of-conference schedule, and even then, that's a little hard to control because of the Power 5 requirement, because the schedule's filled out 3 years. So what if we do this? What if we take the schedule this year, the lot that they're basically dealt, and tried to figure out like the optimal order? How's that? Is that a good way to go about it?
Yeah.
Okay, if you could pick an opener of the teams on their schedule, and I'll give you a second if you need to pull up the schedule to refresh your memory. I
know everybody that they play. I don't know the order.
Okay, I've got it. I'll tell you what. Here's my ideal opener: Northern Illinois, and this is why. It's a game.
UNLV.
Well, okay, one of those two. Maybe UNLV would be better. Like, it's a game that you're expected to win. Northern Illinois would be tougher than UNLV's. It just depends on how you want to go with that. But I would probably start off with one of those two.
That's exactly that's exactly what I would do. I would start because as you said it, I would start off with UNLV. That's exactly what I would do.
I think a road trip to Purdue is pretty good right where it is.
Yeah, I totally agree.
You've then got the bye week. That's probably at a decent spot, but considering you're coming off fall camp, you got kids starting school. LSU the next week, I might leave that about there. I mean, you're going to have to start facing tough teams at some point. It seems like they play their better football late in the year. So, I don't know. Let's face it. LSU is probably a game that you're not going to win regardless of where it is. So, I don't know that I have a big qualm with leaving that one there, especially coming off a bye week.
I would like to point one thing out. About LSU, okay? Doesn't it seem like a lot of the time, especially early on in the season, somewhere along the way, LSU plays a game that they either lose to a team they probably shouldn't lose to or get tested by a team that they're clearly better than? Who was it that beat them? Was it UAB that beat them a couple of years ago?
Okay, I've got LSU's entire schedule in front of me. Okay, last year LSU opened the season beating Miami, Southeast Louisiana, Auburn, Louisiana Tech, and Ole Miss in succession, starting 5-0. The year before, shut out BYU in the opener. They beat UTC, then got clobbered at Mississippi State in week 3. Beat LSU and then lost to Troy as a 20-point favorite in week 5.
Troy. That's who it was. It was Troy. They lost to Troy. And last year, if I remember correctly, and I don't have a schedule in front of me, but if I remember correctly, that Arkansas game was like a touchdown game, like 24-17 or some crap like that.
It's crazy. You nailed the exact score on that. Yes.
I knew it was a touchdown game. See, that's what I'm talking about. They find a way in one of those games against a team that's clearly better than. Just the Detroit game. They lost Detroit, Chris. That's what I'm talking about. They've got a bad game in them every single year. They're going to have a bad game somewhere around there. And look, I don't want to be in a situation where the only chance we've got is if they play a bad game. Hell no. I mean, I would like to beat them at their best, but they're clearly better than we are. But I think, man, this early on in the season, and again, especially if whoever our quarterback is can deliver the goods. Look, I know our defense is going to give up some stuff along the way. There's growth. There's a growth spurt that they're going to have to go through, and I don't expect them to be a rock solid unit by any stretch of the imagination. Improve, certainly hope so. Rock solid, probably not. But I'm telling you right now, if our quarterback can come through, that's a balanced attack. You yourself know how deep that wide receiving core is. We got maybe if not the best, the second best tight end in the country, and one of the top 5 running backs in the country. That's a lot of stuff to deal with for any defense. Okay, Keyshawn Vaughn. Think about that game against Florida last year, Chris. He had, what did he have, almost 200 yards in the first 17, 18 minutes in that game. They're up by 3 touchdowns before he goes out. I'm telling you right now, there are weapons on that offense that can keep them in the game with almost anybody that they're going to play this year. And if Vanderbilt comes out there and they're not beat to crap from playing Georgia and at Purdue, a team that beat Ohio State by 29 last year, telling you, man, I'm not saying they're going to win the game. I'm just telling you that if LSU's history holds true and Vanderbilt's offense is balanced as it has the chance to be, I'm not going to be surprised one lick when they're in that game with LSU. Now, having said that, they may lose 50-3, but I don't think so.
Yeah,
I think they're in that game.
I can see them being competitive. Let me ask you this. Okay, try this one on for size. Let's say they go win at Purdue, which is doable. They're not going to be favored, but I think they'll be maybe a touchdown underdog, depending on what happens with Georgia. Let's say they win at Purdue, then they have a week off, then they have LSU. Does that game look different at that point?
It might, but I'll tell you this. One thing I know about now, the people that know, the wise guys, they'll know. But I don't care what Vanderbilt does. They're not going to be favored in the LSU game if they beat Georgia and Purdue. They're not going to be favored.
But I'm just saying, does that seem a little bit more winnable? And okay, maybe that depends on what happens when LSU goes to Texas the week before Vanderbilt has the bye week.
That's a great point too. Boy, I want to see that game. That's 2 teams. I couldn't tell you the last time I saw them play each other, but that's a game that I definitely want to see. But yeah, I mean, I think it could have a little bit of effect on it, a little bit of bearing on it. But you know, let's just say something. Vanderbilt wins that game against Georgia. I'm not calling that. I'm just saying, if they did, and finds a way to win a very difficult game up in Indiana. When they come home, let's say LSU hasn't lost either. Vanderbilt won a close game in both of them against Georgia and Purdue. Predict the line of that football game.
I'm thinking LSU in 13.
Let me give you a point of reference, okay? A couple of years ago, Vanderbilt started off, what were we, 4-0, 3-0, something like that, had just beaten Kansas State, which I guess would kind of, on the scheme of things, would be kind of like beating Purdue, maybe. Yeah. I don't know, maybe a little different. And Alabama came to town, and that game got down into like the teens, if I remember.
That was an 18-point line. I'm looking at it right. I can't believe in hindsight it was that low. Well, of course, here's what they did. They're a field goal favorite against MTSU, and they win that one by 25. And then, of course, they beat Kansas State when it was ranked 18th. Dad.
I remember that. And so that's why I'm saying if they were to beat and they got that respect from beating MTSU's head in and just getting by Kansas State. Now, imagine if they beat Georgia, a top 5 team, and then back it up by going up to West Lafayette and winning a game like that. You still think that game would be a 13-point line?
By the way, can I take us on a sidebar for a second? Because we're going to need to get back to the question at hand. But you know how sometimes I just shake my head at lines? I'm looking back at this again. Okay, in 2016, Vandy beats Middle 47-24. They open at Middle the next year. It's a 3-point line, Vanderbilt's favorite. And after winning that one 28-6, they come into last year as a 3-point favorite, which they win 35-7. And if you recall, I think I said both those years, I didn't bet, but I thought that was just stupid, those lines. That sure turned out to be true.
Oh, I know. That's why I'm saying, and that's why you were so right about that Georgia line bet, where I thought it should have been, ended up opening to 20 or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's my whole point. I mean, we have an image that it's going to take years to overcome, But I think about that. Now, in that particular season, the respect that they garnered going to that Alabama game, less than a 20-point line. That's why I'm saying, if it's only about 18 points with Bama, the number one team in the country, and marginal wins over pretty good teams, can you imagine what that line would be if they beat Georgia and beat Purdue? I think you're looking at a 7-point line at the most.
I'm looking back, and again, another sidebar, and I wonder how, if 2017 will end up being the aberration in Derek Mason's career, because if you take that middle of the season out, which I'm not suggesting you should, it's part of the sample size, but just for the game at hand, that's that completely does not fit with the rest of those years. Okay, Alabama beats them 59-0 as an 18-point favorite. Then they miss the number the next 4 weeks against Florida, Georgia, Ole Miss, and South Carolina, and frankly didn't look good in any of those games except for maybe South Carolina. And then they got back to play, and then they played they beat Western. They were an 11-point favorite. They win by 14. They're a 2-point underdog to Kentucky. I'm sorry, a favorite, and get clobbered 44-21. Get clobbered by Missouri as a 7-point dog, 45-17, and then, of course, beat Tennessee at the end. But I'm wondering how history will judge that season. But, hey, let's get back to the question. So far, what we have done is we've swapped UNLV and Georgia, and we've just stuck with the schedule the rest of the way, correct? Or did you want to swap anything else?
Well, let's see. UNLV and yes. Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll live with it.
So Vanderbilt has opened with UNLV, gone to Purdue, had a bye week, played LSU. 28th, I think Northern Illinois at home is a good game. I think that's a good time for that game. Would you agree?
I would agree. Look, let me show you something. The rest of the way, I'm fine. The rest of it, I don't mind the order. It's okay. The only issue that I have with the schedule is putting those first 3 games together like that. That's it. The rest of it, you exchanged the Georgia and UNLV, and I'm fine.
Yeah, I think so. The only other thing, because then the schedule is Northern Illinois at Ole Miss, UNLV, Missouri, bye week, at South Carolina, at Florida, Kentucky, ETSU, and at Tennessee. The only thing I might change, I don't really like South Carolina and Florida back-to-back weeks, but, it's kind of pick your poison. Missouri at home won't be easy either. So I don't know. Maybe I would go move South Carolina up into the bye week, the 26th from the 2nd, have a bye week the 2nd, then you go to Florida and have 4 straight to end the season. I don't know. We're probably nitpicking. I think that the thing that really we're getting at is we just don't like Georgia in the opener because of that Georgia-Purdue LSU sequence.
Absolutely. That's where I'm at, because I like being in a situation. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would like to have already, clinched something there, but I don't mind being in a situation where I need 2 wins in my last 3 games, and those games are Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Kentucky, or Ole Miss, Tennessee, and an ETSU or something like that. I like being in that situation because, that second half of the season, I mean, I look at that schedule. I said, we can't beat them. There's nobody on that schedule like that.
I'm going to be a little contrarian here. I know people have griped about their out-of-conference schedule. I don't have a huge problem with it. Now, I don't know that they should have gone to Notre Dame last year. Of course, that was David Williams' thing. It was his doing. He's gone now. The Stanford series a few years from now, I don't know that that's one they should be playing, but who knows? 10 years from now or whenever it is, I'm presuming they're going to have new facilities, which is going to make them more competitive. And who knows? Stanford has been unusually successful the last decade. Stanford may be down by that point. I like the games that they're playing, the Northern Illinois, the Colorado States, the MTSUs, the Western Kentuckys. I like their non-conference schedule. Louisiana Tech is on it for next year. I think those are the kind of games that they should be playing because they're more interesting than playing just a team that you're going to slaughter. It's a game that you should win. But, those might be some teams that end up winning 6, 7, 8 games and going to bowls. But Vanderbilt traditionally started to play very well in that type of game. And I know people complain about Purdue. Well, when they scheduled that game a few years ago, Purdue was nothing. So I think for the most part, I like the direction of their out-of-conference scheduling. I think the Louisiana Techs, the Colorado States, those kind of teams are the kinds of games they should be playing.
I mean, I'm right there with you. Look, I don't mind every now and then a sexy, Power 5 conference type of team, like last year. I can't really call them Power 5. Notre Dame. I mean, if we can look at them in the eye, we need to start winning some of those, but if we can look them in the eye, if we can play them and still get bowl eligible, bring it on. Bring it on. I'm all right with that. And the Stanford thing, I'm not backing down from the Stanford thing because you mentioned the facilities. I think that certainly is going to help. Think about what beating Stanford would do for us. You know what I mean? There's such a perception that Stanford is so superior to Vanderbilt in every way from a football program, and maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. But what if it isn't? What if they win that game? You can't tell me they can't beat Stanford. They should have beat Notre Dame last year. Don't tell me that Stanford's so good Vanderbilt cannot beat them. It's a team that plays Florida and Georgia every year. Stanford's not going to show me anything that's going to blow me away. But especially among those players who love those type of schools, the Vanderbilt, Northwestern, Duke, Stanfords of the world. Stanford is still considered that kind of king dog daddy. But what if we look them right in the eye and beat them? What would that do, Chris? Would that have more? Now, this may be a little much, but I don't know that. Would a win over Stanford, not for our fan base, but in the minds of the kids that we recruit, be bigger than a win over UT?
Oh, right now, I think it would be. First of all, Stanford's a way better program. But yeah, the types of kids that they go after, man, you know what really maybe they ought to do is play Duke. Because it seems like Duke just wins so many head-to-head battles with them in recruiting that, like, if you lose that game, well, you're losing to them in recruiting anyway. If you win that game, then maybe it helps you grab some kids.
Yeah, because I'm tired of their coming into my city and in my state and taking players that I want. So yeah, I think that's probably right. Bring them on. I'm not afraid of Duke. Bring Duke on. And same thing for Stanford. I'm not afraid of them either. And you go back to the Northwestern series. We got blanked in that series, but Chris, we probably should have won them both.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I was there. We got robbed. There ain't no other way to put it. We got flat robbed in Evanston, Illinois. Happened right in front of me. I watched it.
Well, I think you could make the argument they got robbed in the one in Nashville too with the high hit call. I vaguely remember that now, but I remember that was really controversial. I remember that staff was hot about that call.
These programs aren't any better than we are, Chris. Here's the bottom line. They don't have to play in the SEC. We do. They're any better than we are. Now, one thing I will say is, it'd be very, very difficult. And let me just tell you right now, it's not going to happen. What they just did up in Evanston, facilities-wise, with all the money they spent on that amazing complex, up there, right there on Lake Michigan. We're not replicating that, and we're not equaling that. But from just the status of a program, the product they're putting on the field, Northwestern isn't any better than Vanderbilt. And remember what happened when Northwestern tangled with freaking UT in the bowl game? Remember what happened?
Not specifically, but I think Northwestern beat them pretty good, didn't it?
Northwestern got their heads kicked in, if I remember correctly.
Oh, did they? Okay, I've forgotten.
It was just a couple of years ago, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to remember what that final score was. I don't think it was 41-3. I'll look that up. But Northwestern and Tennessee played a couple of years in a bowl game, and for some reason, 41-3 keeps sticking in my mind.
Okay, I totally. That's right. That was the 15 Outback Bowl. Okay, Tennessee won that game 45-6, and that's when Tennessee. That's when Tennessee kind of had it going for a while. I really thought. Looking back on that, I thought Tennessee looked really. I'm sure our audience is going to love this. I thought Tennessee was really coming on right around that time, and then it just totally fell apart because they won the Gator Bowl. Then they beat Northwestern, and then they beat Nebraska in the Music City Bowl, and boy, the bottom fell out from there.
Telling y'all right now, Vanderbilt plays Duke, they absolutely can beat them. Vanderbilt plays Northwestern, they absolutely can beat them. Stanford, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to say that or not, but I don't think there's a whole ton of difference. Folks, at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is the difference in these programs is that they're not in the SEC and we are. That's it. But we get kind of frustrated because we're here, we're fans, we see the half-empty stadium, and we don't get some of the results we want. But the truth of the matter is, as far as teams, as far as talent, those teams aren't any better than Vanderbilt. You think I'm wrong about that?
Well, you mean Stanford, Northwestern, and Duke, or which teams are you referring to specifically?
Basically Northwestern and Duke.
Okay, there's no doubt that Northwestern is a better program and Stanford's a better program. Duke, I would have to look up. Now,
what do you mean by no doubt?
Right now, those are better programs. Stanford and Northwestern are better programs than Vanderbilt year in and year out.
Stanford, I'm not part of this conversation because I don't think they're there yet. But the last two times that we played Northwestern, like I told you, we got jobs. We were every bit as good as they were. Now, how much they've improved over us in that time, I'm not saying we're better than Northwestern, but they're definitely somebody that we could beat. If we come out and played our game, we can definitely beat them.
Okay, last 5 years records. Northwestern, in order, starting with 2014, 5-7, 10-3, 7-6, 10-3, 9-5. Northwestern is a better program. Now, does Northwestern have to be a better program? Of course not. Northwestern is investing in facilities, a decision that Vanderbilt can make. I think it can flip on a dime, but right now there's no debate.
And how many of those seasons did they play in the SEC?
Yeah, but look, you can say what you want. They played head-to-head twice, and Northwestern still won those games. I don't. Do you really think there's a debate about who the better program is right now? I just don't.
Look, the results have been better, but I am telling you right now, you put them in our conference, they're no different. And you saw on the field when those two teams got together, they were no different. They could play that game 10 times. It's going to be a different result. 10 times, it'd be 5-5. Maybe 6-4. There's not this big talent gap between teams like Northwestern and Duke and Vanderbilt. They're just not. That it comes down to one thing: the conference they're affiliated with. I know that's right. I know it's right. You put Northwestern in there, and you make them play Florida, South Carolina, and Georgia, and of course we're mentioning teams like Notre Dame and teams that we have to play in and week out. And I'm nobody's SEC lackey, but I am telling you right now, it matters.
I'm just going to leave it there. I think we're just going to agree to disagree on that. Now, do I think them being the SEC would make a difference? Yeah, but it's a pretty big gap, and I don't think you can just size it up to that right now. Duke, the last 5 years, 9-4, 8-5, 4-8, 7-6, 8-5. So right now, Duke, I think, has a better program too. Now, again, Does it have to be that way? Of course not. Those schools have committed to football, and Vanderbilt has not. Now, I think that's changing, but I think that actually should be encouraging. I think that should be a thing Vanderbilt looks at and say, hey, look, if we are willing to do some things, like-minded schools have had success. It has not hurt their academic brand. We should too. Hey, I'm going to move us on to the next question because we got a couple more. Anchor 2020 says, what's more likely, Mason leaving after a 7-win season or 2019, or him demanding more resources than ever before?
Well, that's easy. That's easy. Demanding more resources than ever before. Because, I mean, look, he's had a couple of chances potentially to go back home in a Power 5 conference and didn't do it. You know, now if he starts to see things happening and he's starting to win games and facilities are changing and he's talking to Malcolm and promises are being made, I think Derek Mason is absolutely 100% at the school that he wants to be at right now.
Yeah, I think so too. The only thing I might quibble with there is the word demanding. It's just not like Derek to demand things. But yeah, I think he's more likely to try to build on what he's got, especially with an AD. From what I hear, he really likes and play his hand here. Plus, I mean, it's a good situation. Nashville's a great town. I think that he buys the academic mission that the school has. I think it's a good match with a lot of things. He just needs to win more games.
I think that's 100% correct.
Okay, 2 more questions. View Titan says, is there anything to Vanderbilt buying Jay Alexander's and the Holiday Inn for building a new stadium?
That's going to be a Chris question. I do not know.
I will circle back to something. Oh, man, and I wish I could remember the source, but I think it was one of my better ones, mentioning something, I believe about this time last year, about Vanderbilt kind of having on its radar buying property over on that side of campus. My theory, and Adam Sparks disagreed with me in our podcast we did last Friday. I don't know who's right, but my theory, and I'm going to stick with this, I think, for now. My theory has been, for a few months, if I had to guess what's going on 5 years from now, that they are building a new stadium across from where the practice field is now. Now, I would not bet any large degree of money on it. I'm just thinking of all the outcomes right now. That has been the one, based on what I've heard a little bit here and there, that I think is the most likely outcome. If I had to pick one against the field, I might take the field versus that one, but that's where I am. To me, I don't know. To me, buying those properties, which I think the Nashville Post this week reported that they had, maybe this is confirmation bias, but it makes me think that they will do something else with the stadium where it is, based on what I was told a year ago, and use that in addition to the space they're purchasing and go ahead with the football stadium across from the practice field. Again, could be completely wrong, but that's kind of how I process that.
And just because I wasn't sure and I was trying to visualize that, now I'm buying the property, does that mean the hotel's coming down?
I don't know what that means. I just have been told they were eyeing property, I think, around that area. I think is what I was told a year ago.
I'm looking at a giant stadium with a Wendy's right next to it. And then I guess the question that I have is, and since we're just speculating 5 years from now that stadium is being built, what would you shoot if you had to ballpark a number capacity-wise, their level of thinking, okay, we're going to expand the fan base. Nashville continues to expand. We're going to be Nashville's team. We got a brand new stadium coming in. Do we want to do a 35,000 type of deal? Do we dream big, make it $50,000, $50,000 capacity? If you had to speculate on what might happen in regards of just pure seats, pure numbers, What do you think would happen? Well, how do you think that would go? What number would you target?
I think it would be a little smaller. I'm thinking around 35, but this is what I would do. I would market the heck out of season tickets, and I would market the heck out of my product all over the mid-state. They're doing that thing. I think they're having the buyback program or the buy tickets for the military where you can buy tickets for $10 a piece and donate them to military personnel in the area. Things like that to build your fan base. Because here's what I want if I'm them. I want a season ticket base of around 25,000 or a little bit bigger, to where when I build that stadium, it isn't 7,000 Vanderbilt fans and 28,000 Georgia. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but you get my point. What I am doing is I'm trying to, if I'm going to go smaller, I'm especially ramping up my effort to make sure I get a big share of that stadium sold out to my season ticket base before those rest of those tickets ever go on sale, because I'm wanting that place 30 of mine and 5 of theirs if I'm Vanderbilt.
Right, for sure. No question about that. Now, on that note, and I just thought about this, because nobody said a word about it. I know some things are changing in the marketing side of things for Vanderbilt. That it's been archaic in their way of thinking, and that's turning around. But do you see that having an effect at all this year? Any anticipation on what numbers to expect or what it might look like? Same as what we're used to seeing. Maybe because we're a little more interactive, the numbers go up, especially with potential and some of the NFL caliber players that they have coming back. Any anticipation or talk of what attendance might look like?
No, and if I have one thing, I'm not even going to use the word disappointment because that's not fair. Malcolm Turner came in with a lot to bite off. They've done some things, like they had the billboard in Hoover. They have done a lot, I think, internally with media relations to publicize the big three in their program. I see positive things changing there. You have some little things here and there with tickets and some things that I've heard privately. My one thing that I wanted to see a little bit more from them was to market tickets. And I think they've done some things behind the scenes, but I don't know that they've been as out front. I could be wrong. I think that they could, and I think they bought that, or they're using that consulting firm. I don't know. I just think that they maybe would like to see them be a little bit more aggressive. And again, I'm not going to go to the point where I'm using disappointment yet, because, again, you got an AD who had just more than he could imagine to bite off. And you can't do everything, but that's kind of the next area where I think they could use a little bit more work, is I guess a way to put it. I would like to see them be a little bit more publicly out there. That may not even be fair, because I do see some positive signs. I have some ticket guys tweeting some things. I think they're baby steps. And again, transition period. I think that's acceptable to build an allowance for that. But I think that's their next challenge, is to really get out in front of that a little bit more. And I could be wrong. They may be doing enough of that, but I perceive that I would like to see a little bit more of that. By the way, speaking of that, they had, I believe, 9 media outlets at their first practice, which I think that's the most I've ever seen there.
What do you attribute that to?
I think they've got storylines, which to me makes practice access restrictions a little bit more questionable. I think you had a lot of people that came to that practice and were bored to tears. Now, maybe it's not much of a different thing, because the TV guys, they come get their shots, they ask their questions. Maybe that doesn't change. But I think in a year where you've got more to sell and promote than you've ever had, it really is, in that respect, kind of bad timing.
Right, because look, winning will take care of everything. You win, and that's going to happen. But I guess I'll ask this question. And really the only thing that matters is what Coach Mason thinks. But do you think the restriction on practice in the fall is going to make the difference in a win or a loss in the game, even one Saturday this year?
No, but again, we're back to they need to build a fan base and build excitement, and I think they've got more to promote going into a season, James Franklin years accepted, than they've had since I have covered them. And when you're Vanderbilt and it's a struggle to get fans and exposure, do you not strike while the iron is hot?
And that is my point. That's the really, other than just wanting to find out information, that would be my one issue with it. Is you're right, because there are real storylines here. There's a very thought-provoking, not just Vanderbilt fans, just college football period. Interesting things coming out of this program this fall, and the access is tighter than it's ever been. And I don't know. I mean, look, like, as I said, the only thing that matters is what Coach Mason thinks at the end of the day. But I just kind of agree with you with the type of potential stuff we got going on over there. I don't love the timing of it.
Last question, then I'll get you out of here. KT Doors says, will Andrew Luck ever play a full season with the Colts again?
Yeah, 2019.
What about that hammy?
Look, they say he got my dog back. Tell him, Mr. Bean, it's not a hamstring. It's a calf
Oh,
strain.
excuse me, calf.
And look, here's the deal. First of all, Andrew was very private about stuff. He doesn't really let a lot out, and it kind of falls back on the Colts to answer. But Ballard and Frank Reich are pretty good about that. Do I want him out there building rapport with Devin Funchess and Paris Campbell? Of course, Paris is hurt right now. But players that he doesn't really know or hasn't had a chance to build with, sure, I would. But, Chris, this time last year, the narrative was, will this guy ever throw a football again? Will he ever play? Well, 2018 told you, yeah, he's kind of fine and good to go. Look, do I think that if today were the first game of today was the first game of the season that he played? Maybe not. But I believe that he'll play when it comes to the first game against the Chargers in week 1? I do. I don't have to see him in the preseason cutting it up. I know he knows the playbook. I know he knows everything he needs to know, and he has nothing to prove other than that calf is fine. And if it takes not getting the reps in camp, fine. The last thing I want to do is move this thing along and him end up having an issue with a calf strain that could have been prevented if he'd just given him more time to rest. Jacoby Brissett is more than capable of running things in the preseason and in the camp. I'm okay with that. It's frustrating because, yes, I want to know he's perfectly good and ready to go, but he should be ready to go in week 1.
I think they should just go ahead and amputate.
You need to calm down. And before I have to, although I love all my Titans friends, because a lot of you are Commodore fans as well, but don't make me put you in check like Reggie Wayne did at the draft. You remember that?
Yeah, that might have been the Titans fan in me talking.
You remember what Reggie Wayne said? I know you ain't booing. We done played y'all 20 times. You've won 3.
Hey.
So, and that's all in good friend. I love you guys. I do. I want to beat your brains out on Sunday twice a year. Other than that, I'm always pulling for them.
Hey, we're just ready for
understand.
We're just ready for 8-8 again, right?
Hey, no, y'all are better than that, I think. But I will say this. I make no apologies. Even when I was doing radio in Nashville, I make no apologies for being a Colts fan. I've been one for 46 years. It's a good position for the people at Tennessee to be in, but we didn't have any professional teams, and now we have 3. And a lot of us who are in their 40s and whatnot and older than that, we've been fans of teams from other areas for a long time, and it's great that the Titans came here, and I pull for them when they're not playing the team that I rooted for almost 50 years. I'm not going to stop now. Get mad at me if you want for being a Titan or being a Colts fan. It's not going to faze me one way or the other, but I ain't having no time talking.
If you were anything, you were loyal.
Don't you just love football?
I do. And with that, I'm going to wish you goodbye so we can talk again next week. That's a really strong close there. I think I'm running out of steam here.
I'd like to wish you a goodbye. Well, you running out of steam, but what do I have to do in an hour? Another 2-hour show.
Meanwhile, I'm closing like the Braves bullpen here.
You're striking out like the Cardinals bats.
We could go on, but I guess we won't. Well, my friend, tell them where they can find you on Twitter, where they can hear your show, and anything else that they might want to know.
All right, Commodore Nation, that's time to wish you a goodbye. You can find me at Twitter at Cheap Seats Bass, online at WNWS.com, and on your radio dial, 101.5 FM, 6 to 8 p.m. in Jackson, Tennessee, or as my good friend Gary says, good old Jackson, Tennessee.
Thanks, my man.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Fatty. Let's do it again.